Alright, so you want to play Explosive Shot? I've honestly gotten way too many whispers about how to play Explosive Shot Hunter, so I decided to make a video about it. Okay, so I'm going to section this video into parts. I'll be putting timestamps in the description, and they should be up on the screen now. Just go to that if you've already watched or you want to only see specific things, but we're going to start out with abilities first. So starting off with abilities, there's a handful of spells that I would say are required to play the spec, otherwise you will stand at a huge hindrance compared to other players. So if you don't have all of them, I would consider rerolling. These spells include Auto Shot, Steady Shot, Arcane Shot, Life Tap, and Aspect of the Hawk. So I feel it's pretty obvious why you want Auto Shot, Arcane Shot, and Steady Shot, because you wouldn't be able to do damage otherwise. And Life Tap and Aspect of the Hawk are incredibly powerful, and if you don't have them, you're really going to suffer because you're going to have mana issues, or you're just going to have a lot less attack power than everyone else. So you may have already noticed, but a lot of these spells are actually rollable at level 1, so I'll quickly suggest what I would say the best start is for a spec like this. So if you look on the Ascension wiki, currently Arcane Shot and Steady Shot have a 25% extra roll chance versus every other spell while you have Auto Shot. So with such high chances, I'd really suggest you don't even take them level 1. Instead, my perfect start would be Auto Shot, Aspect of the Hawk, Life Tap, whatever you want. Personally, I choose Blessing of Might, but Serpent Sting is really good because it isn't weighted. Fade is really good for PvE DPS, and Charge is really good for PvP. It's really up to you. And if it wasn't obvious, you want Explosive Shot. And if possible, you want to pick up Black Arrow because it procs lock and load and gives you % damage to hunter shots. I'm now going to list like a mid-tier of power level for spells. These spells aren't required to play the spec, but you need a few of them to really succeed in high DPS. So really, any combination of these can do you good, but not having one means you probably should reroll. These abilities include Arcane Power, Volley, Poisons, Multi-Shot, Cat Form, and Moonkin Form. Firstly, Instant Poison can be applied to your bow or gun, giving you a base 5% more damage with little talent investment. Cat Form can be used with the RE1 with the Hunt for 15% shot damage. Arcane Power actually affects your shot's damage, giving you high burst. Volley is actually amazing for DPS, with Rain of Arrows Epic RE. Multi-Shot with Focus Burst does a stupid amount of damage, and Moonkin Form, with its mana regeneration and crit bonus aura, being a great passive buff. Additionally, you really want traps. Explosive Shot's damage significantly ramps up from proccing Lock and Load, which if you didn't know, Lock and Load is a buff that gives you free, instant cast, no cooldown explosive shots. And I would consider traps to be the most important spells for PvE, so I would really aim for those. And also, the best two traps for DPS are Explosive and Immolation Trap. I also wanted to mention a third tier of abilities that are very good, but I wouldn't consider them at the power level of Arcane Power or Moonkin Form, but they're still very good. The spells included in this tier would be Blessing of Might, Disengage, Misdirection, Feign Death, Rockbiter, Molten Armor, and Serpent Sting. So Rockbiter and Blessing of Might are just for attack power, pure damage. Disengage with Paratrooper in PvP is amazing, and in PvE it's just an overall good spell for movement. Misdirect and Feign Death are amazing for threat. Serpent Sting is easy to keep up. And finally Molten Armor, which can be used with Molten Mind for threat reduction and more crit damage. That about wraps up what abilities I think are important and that you should be looking at, and we'll go on to REs. Now with REs, they really depend on what you're running, like what abilities you have available to you. But there's a few core ones that I would suggest really anyone who's playing Explosive Shot should run. These REs include Secrets of the Farstrider, TNT, Survival Instincts, and Seething Flames. They overall just boost your damage, and there's really not another option. There's two other REs that I consider really important, but you can justify not running them, which are Mortal Shots and Precision. The hit chance is great, and Mortal Shots is just 5% damage if you're really geared. Now with Epics, it really depends on what you roll, because there's a lot of available REs, it just depends what skills you have. But as for the stuff I run, I have one with the Hunt, Fired Up, and Arrows of Fire. I use Fired Up and Arrows of Fire because they're just passive buffs to my fire damage, just in some level, and one with the Hunt is really the only other available epic RE for me. I also run Hasty Arcane Shot because I like it. There really is no reason why. It's probably not optimal, but I really just enjoy the ability to press a button every single GCG. If you want a good replacement, I'd suggest Critical Mass for 2% fire crit. So with the many different epic REs available to you and the many different spells you could potentially roll, I really suggest you test what epics you want and see which ones become optimal based on what abilities you have. And it's really ultimately all about your preference. Last, but most certainly not least, look into talents. Similar to RE's, it's very likely you'll have a different setup of talents based on what you roll versus what I have. But there definitely are some specific talents that are really important and core for all explosive shot hunter specs. So my list of most important talents include Aspect Mastery, Careful Aim, Mortal Shots, Lone Wolf, TNT, Lock and Load, Master Tactician, Exposed Weakness, Thrill of the Hunt, Resourcefulness, and Survival Instincts. There isn't much to say about most of these talents. They're mainly just there to increase crit chance and damage, but there are a few important ones to note. No matter what pet you get, you will 100% not be using it, because the 10% damage from Lone Wolf is so important. 5% damage per point is amazing. Depending on your gear, you might be able to get away with 1 point in Exposed Weakness, but for now, I'd suggest putting in 2 until you're in pre-raid Bis or higher. I also like to take Improved Arcane Shot because it's 15% damage for one of my 3 highest damaging abilities, but really those points can go wherever you see fit. Next, we move to Mage talents. Here, you want to take Ignite, Pyromaniac, and Empowering Fire. Ignite procs when you crit with Seething Flames or Explosive Shot, so it's a minimum of 5% damage increase. And in big AoE fights, you'll see it do a lot more damage. And overall, I would say this is the second most important talent for the spec next to Mental Quickness. I personally take Empowering Flame. Typically you put 1 point in there for mana, but I put 2 because I don't have life tap. I also recommend taking Burning Soul, as it reduces your Seething Flames and Explosive Shots threat by 20%, but this is purely preference. If you have high threat tanks or you're PvPing, it's really not that necessary. So you may have already noticed, but most of your talents are in Mage and Hunter, but there are a few key ones that are outside those trees which you cannot miss. And the most staple one for Explosive Shot Hunter is Mental Quickness. This is by far the most important talent for this spec, and really all Explosive Shot Hunters. It's the reason why you take Secret of Forest Riders. If you don't have this talent, you will not be playing the spec optimally. So I take a few specific talents because I have Cap Form. I really like Feline Swiftness because it's great in PvP, and it's got me out of a pinch more than once in PvE, so I really recommend it. I also take Natural Shapeshifter because I spend so much mana shapeshifting, but if you have life tap, you probably don't need it. And because you're fairly unlikely to get Cap Form, I'd recommend taking 3 points that I'm spending for these talents to put into Ardent Defender, which is great for PvE and PvP. Finally, we'll get to gearing. I wasn't going to mention this, but I realized it's probably important to note. You're looking to get full attack power and agi armor, just like how a normal hunter would. But the key difference is that you run a spell power main hand just because there's so many stats on it, and then you run a spell power off hand because the bonus of 6% spell damage actually applies to your shots. Also, the spell power and crit rating is typically way higher than whatever offhand you could get normally. So not running these as a main hand offhand will significantly lower your DPS. Alright, so that's pretty much all the stuff that I thought would be important for learning how to play Explosive Shot Hunter. It's also important to note that there are many different hunter specs, so don't use this as a guide for all hunter specs. This is specifically for a spell power, Explosive Shot, Arcane Shot Hunter. If you have any additional questions of stuff I didn't list here, or any specific information that I failed to mention, tell me about it in the comments. And if you want more build style videos like this, let me know. But that's all I got, so thanks for watching.